Hello and welcome to Scran. On this episode we are celebrating all things Burns ahead of Burns Night, including haggis, poetry, as well as a very unusual Burns supper. I'm now joined by Kathleen Cronie, who, if you've listened to our previous episode recorded at the Globe Inn in Dumfries, you may remember from her wonderful tour. Hi Kathleen, how are you?
Hello, how are you? It's good to see you again.
You too. So we did say we'd have you back, and here we are in January. It's coming up for Burns Night, and this is obviously one of your specialities. So for anyone that didn't really listen to our episode before or would like to catch up with that, could you just give me a little introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yes, certainly. I'm Kathleen Cronie. I'm the resident storyteller and tour guide at the Globe Inn in Dumfries, and I'm also the founder of Mostly Ghostly. And we present a range of ghost and local history tours in Dumfries and Galway. But my role, very much in relation to Burns, is centred on the Globe, welcoming people from far and wide to come and learn about Burns and to help connect people to that incredible history and the building itself, which is just remarkable, over 400 years old.
And Burns has got this huge lasting legacy, and obviously Burns Night is the night where most people, sit down, have haggis, and tatties and celebrate. But what was his sort of tie to Dumfries, for anyone that doesn't know?
Well, he's got very strong links to Dumfries. In fact, much of the built heritage that remains, Burns would have been familiar with during his time. And, he initially moved to this area, to Ellisland Farm, which is about 6 miles north of Dumfries. And then he moved to the town in 1791, initially to his home in Bank Street, or the Stinking Vennel as it was known then, which is not the most appealing name. But he moved eventually to his house, which we now know as Burns House, very close to the church where he worshipped at St Michael's. He frequented the Globe regularly during his visits when he was working with the excise, and he would travel to Dumfries. He would sometimes spend the night there, but once he'd actually moved to the town, he would come regularly to the Globe. It was like a sort of nightly ritual where he would present the news to an assembled gathering from his chair.
And why do you think that Burns has such this lasting legacy? Because obviously, the if you're a creative and you become famous through your art, that will maybe last hopefully through the years. But we're talking a long, long time that Burns has been, very famous in Scotland and abroad.
Yes, I mean, his legacy is timeless. It's enduring. The themes are every bit as relevant. In fact, some maybe even more so in today's world. And it's these kind of enduring themes of love and loss and nature and war and all the things that are hugely affecting in our day-to-day lives. And just that kind of character study of everyday people as well, and immortalising them too, which inspires us to research the past and research our local history and learn more about the people who lived in this area and further afield. I think he appeals to such a wide range of people too, and many folk have perhaps an unusual relationship with Burns in the sense that they're not sure how they feel about him because he was a man of so many contrasts. But I think that no one can deny his remarkable talent and his ability to connect with others and his kind of captivating, magnetic appeal to so many. And it just transcends the ages.
And just for anyone that doesn't know, obviously Burns supper, haggis, tatties, a wee dram of whiskey. How is that meal on that day become Burns supper?
I mean, I just think it's over the years that's really evolved, hasn't it? It's become such an important tradition. There's all the different speeches and toasts, and it's a real celebration. And, it started so many years ago. And to think that there'll be Burns suppers being held up and down the country, over the coming weeks and probably into February, giving people a chance to catch up on them all. I've been invited to one myself, which I'm really looking forward to. But I think it's important because people come together to celebrate not just the man and his poetry, but to come together and just enjoy stories, enjoy conversation, good food. And I think it's a very special time of year. I'm super excited about it, as you can probably tell.
I mean, it's a good sort of month after Christmas, so something to look forward to. Get together with friends, have more food. Don't do dry January.
No, no, maybe that's not such a good idea if you're going to a burn supper, certainly. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Given that we still have quite dark days, I think having something in the sort of lull after Christmas and New Year, when people can feel a little bit off kilter, I think it's really nice because it's like a shining beacon, sort of, later in that month that draws people together and encourages people to get out and do things and experience history, culture, and above all, I think friendship.
And I think we talked about this before, but in school we all had to learn a Burns poem, and it became, well, for most people, I think it was a bit of a chore. Have you found over the years, given your work, that it's less of a chore and more of an enjoyment to sort of learn and look at these things again?
I think it is. I think I've gained a different appreciation to Burns. The more that I've discovered about him, and I'm by no means an expert. I'm just a passionate person about local history and people, and I love exploring these stories. And the more I read about him, the more of his poetry I read. I feel that I appreciate it. I've got different insights into it. Had I read it at sort of 15-year-old, it might not have meant the same to me. And I think, as your own life evolves and changes, there's lots of things that you can relate to in Burns's work. And since I've been at the Globe, every day there are more and more questions. Guests ask me questions, I have my own. I've got a great list of things that I'd love to find out about and things I want to ask about Burns and learn about. And I think it's his story is just absolutely fascinating. It's a compelling tale in itself.
From what you've learned over the years, what is a kind of surprising or a fact that people might not know about Burns?
I mean, most people are familiar with the fact that he was, fond of the lassies, let's say, and he had numerous relationships out with his marriage and within it. But one of the things that really stands out for me, and it very much relates to his wife, Jean Armour, as well. And I have such immense respect for Jean Armour and always feel that her immortal memory is every bit as important. And that Jean actually, one of the facts that surprises a lot of our guests when I'm in the Globe talking about Burns and Jean's life, is that Jean actually adopted one of Burns's children. And this child was conceived at the Globe Inn in Dumfries when both she and Burns were together. They were married, they were living at Ellisland, and a baby was born to Anna Park, who was the niece of the landlady. And people are kind of wide-eyed at that. They were familiar maybe with his reputation, but it really surprises them to learn in some ways that Jean, she was so selfless, she was so tolerant, she was such a strong person. She stood by him through thick and thin. There's no question that he has a lot to be very grateful to Jean for, and that she took on this wee girl and gave her love and kindness. And in spite of perhaps some of the colourful conversations and gossip there would have been at the time, that didn't matter. There was a job to be done. There was a child that needed a mother, and that this lady certainly stands out, and she brought a lot of joy to that wee girl's life. So to me, that is one that really touches me and surprised me when I first heard about it. And I've seen the effect that has on guests. So I just wanted to mention that because it does connect so strongly with Jean.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, we hear all about Robert Burns and it's a celebration of his life, quite rightly, but there was a lot of women in his life, so it's nice to know that, that's still being talked about to this day.
I think it's very important to remember the women in his life and the inspiration that they gave him too, because, he wrote The Gowden Locks of Anna following his relationship with Anna Park, and Burns considered that to be his most beautiful love song. And although we may have different views about how that song came into being, there's no question that his words were tender, heartfelt and passionate.
And just before we talk a little bit more about poetry, is there anything special happening at the Globe for Burns Night? I imagine it's a big night, a big sort of celebration.
Well, this is my first time at the Globe for Burns Night. I'm really excited about it because it's going to be like Christmas again, really, isn't it? Lots of people coming in and lots of enthusiasm and excitement and good food and drink. There are two events actually coming up on the 24th and 25th of January, which is going to be absolutely amazing. And Callum Watson, a very talented bagpiper, is going to be performing as well. There's lots going on, and I'm hoping to be guiding lots of people around the globe and sharing some of the fascinating stories of Burns and his time there. So I'm really looking forward to this.
You have chosen a Burns poem to recite for us for in celebration of Burns Night in this podcast. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, it's the minstrel at Lincluden. Now, Lincluden Abbey is just about a mile or so up the river frae Dumfries, and it's a bit of a crumbling ruin today. It's a very romantic and beautiful ruin, a place that Burns walked to regularly when he was in Dumfries along the River Nith. And perhaps during his time there, I would imagine his thoughts hark back to the time he lived at Ellisland, and perhaps he missed that beautiful rural enchanting landscape. And I think Lincluden has got that sense of peace, tranquility, but also it's quite ethereal in its nature, a fine medieval building even today. And he wrote, for example, Ca the Yows to the Nows there and other works too. So it must have been a very inspiring and perhaps restful place for him. And the poem that I've chosen, it really evokes a sense of what the Abbey is like and its surroundings for me. I really liked it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. So would you be able to recite a wee bit for us?
Yes, I can read that out. I can recite that for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you. As I stood by yon roofless tower, where the wallflower scents the dewy air, where the hullet mourns in her ivy bower and tells the midnight moon her care, a lassie, all alone, was making her moan, lamenting our lads beyond the sea. In the bloody wars they fa', and our honours gain, and broken-hearted we maun dee. The winds were laid, the air was still, the stars they shot along the sky, the tod was howling on the hill, and the distant echoing glens reply. The burn, adoon its hazily path, was rushing by the ruined wa', hasting to join the sweeping Nith, whase roarings seemed to rise and fa'. The cauld blae north was streaming forth, her lights wi' hissing eerie din, athwart the lift they start and shift, like fortune's favours tint as wind. Now looking over firth and fold, her horn the pale-faced Cynthia reared, when lo, in form of minstrel old, a stern and stalwart ghaist appeared, and frae his harp six strains did flow, might roused the slumbering dead to hear, but oh, it was a tale of woe, as ever met a Briton's ear. He sang wi' joy his former day, he weeping wailed his latter times, but what he said, it was nae play. I winna venture it in my rhymes.
Thank you very much. I'm holding a microphone and I would applause, but thank you. That was lovely. And yeah, it's very relevant as well today, as you say, with the different themes. So, yeah, thank you for your time again. It was lovely to see you, and I hope you have a lovely Burns night when it comes.
Oh, thanks so much. It's lovely to see you too, and thank you very much for inviting me to take part. It's been a pleasure.
I'm now joined by Graham Main from the Big Burn Supper. Hi, Graham. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really great. Buzzing up for Burns night already.
Yeah, I feel like it's something to look forward to after Christmas. Do you get that?
I've always got that feeling. I was brought up in Dumfries, and that was probably something that we did locally here. But I've always got that kind of buzz that there's a build up to Burns night, particularly in the west of Scotland.
Do you feel like, so you've kind of grown up with it, but do you feel like the rest of Scotland and maybe the rest of the world has kind of caught up with that buzz over the last few years, or do you think it's always been something that's been quite massive?
It's a weird one, that, isn't it? So, according to a report in 2009, 9 million people around the world celebrate Burns Night. And that kind of basically, I think, says quite a lot about what happens when you leave Scotland. I don't know if you've ever left. I went to live in Sligo, of all places, in Ireland, and I bumped into a load of Scots, and it was kind of our thing. We did that, and I think a lot of Scots, or those Scots at heart, kind of do that. Whether that's the same back home, I don't know. But cut a long story short, the Big Burn Supper started because those same friends kind of came to Dumfries about 14 years ago, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be great crack." And actually, what we found is there was a lot of burn suppers going on, but they were hidden behind the door, and you had to have an invite, or you had to know someone in the Burns fraternity. And not only that, which really, so that was the first thing that struck me. But the second thing was that everyone was wearing these tuxedos. So like, I recognised the kilts and I really liked it, but the tuxedo just felt really formal to me, and I didn't really know where I belonged in that. So I guess that's where the genesis of the festival really kicked off, trying to make it accessible to more people.
And how long has it been going for now?
This is its 13th year. First kicked off in 2012 was the first Big Burn Supper. It started off as a 3-day experience, and then it's just kind of literally snowballed from there. And now it's a 3-week experience. We basically open with a carnival. That's still true to who we are. We want to really, Burns is quite hard to engage people in. So we've always been aware that the younger generation, if you just go into their school and ask them to recite Tam O'Shanter, they can see through it. So we do lots of creativity with them, and we've been building a kind of awareness with them to get to know us creatively, to try to see Burns as a creative rather than something that you have to preserve and be scared of.
So you've mentioned the festival and the carnival and stuff and how long it goes on, but what exactly is the Big Burn Supper like today? So as in, when does it kick off this month, and what can people expect from it?
Yeah, so it kicks off on the 17th of January and it runs until the 2nd of February. The Big Burn Supper takes place all across different venues in Dumfries. We start with a massive street carnival and a project called Northern Lights, and that's really about us taking empty shops. So Dumfries High Street are very much like everywhere else at the moment. There's lots of abandoned shops. So we've created a kind of open trail where people can come in and experience the festival. It's all free. It's all really targeted towards people who, we know that people don't have a lot of money after Christmas. Like you were saying, after Christmas you look forward to it. So there's loads of kind of free things for people, street markets. There's loads of brilliant produce from across the region that we're kind of showcasing, as well as there being loads of drink from across the region. That's in a wee sort of food village just outside our building. And then the next weekend, it becomes a bit more Burns-like for us, if you like. So the biggest event that we stage is our Burns Night Live. That's hosted by Michelle McManus, and it includes Eddie Reader and a whole load of local people. And so we're basically serving up 500 Burns suppers at the same time as us broadcasting free to the world on our Facebook channel. Now, when we did this with Janie Godley in 2021, we had just under 500,000 viewers who tuned in. Now, granted, they were all hard up on lockdown and getting bored of each other, and they were all at home kind of watching it. But it's a really brilliant way for us to showcase Dumfries. Dumfries is the kind of home of Burns Night, if you like. And then we've got loads of different things happening. So there's more Burn Suppers happening in Dumfries and Galloway than anywhere else on the planet. So there's Burn Suppers in Stranraer, there's Burn Suppers in Langham, there's stuff for young people, there's stuff for kids and families. At our festival, we always try and really stay true to the tenets of what we believe in, which is to try and make it accessible. So we've got loads of fun things, like there's a haggis tour in the high street, there's a haggis trail. But also we've got a Big Burn Supper on the bus, which is basically a big, massive double-decker bus, and it goes around all the Burns sites. So we're very lucky in Dumfries that Burns is buried here, and they also always farm. So we take the kids and the families around the Burns sites, but at the same time they get a Burn Supper and they get a ceilidh on the bus as well, so it's quite mad. And then of course we've got our underwater Burn Supper for the first time as well, which is just really try to give people a different experience of Burns Night.
So I'm going to come back to the underwater thing, because that is one of the things we're quite intrigued by. But the logistics of all the food. So obviously Burns, when people think of Burns night, they think of haggis, neeps and tatties. And you're right, when I lived abroad, that was, we sat down with my friends and that's what we did. So what are the logistics of getting that many Burns suppers organised for the festival? Is it quite daunting?
It is really, actually. I don't know if that's more daunting for us than staging events or producing shows. We're sort of we work in the live sector, so I suppose for us putting on a show with loads of moving parts is quite difficult. But I guess the trick is for us to make sure that food is served hot, make sure it's local as well, because we've got, and also I think we have to be very careful. There's so many brilliant haggis producers locally. They really are quite. We always get award winners in Dumfries. It may be the Burns connection. But what we've really tried to do is to showcase our incredible food source here and tell the story behind that, as well as kind of getting 500. That basically, the 500 Burn Suppers is one of the tightest operations that we manage. It is the food is cooked off site, it's then delivered to the site, and then effectively we set up this army, and effectively those 500 Burn Suppers will be delivered in about 12 minutes flat, straight to the tables. So then, because we're going live at 7 o'clock, so and that's good as well, because we're a sort of platform for lots of community Burn Suppers, and what I really like about that is when they come to us for inspiration about how they could, energise people, and it's great that we go through what they go through, because they have those problems as well. Like, how will I get the food, and what do you serve? And the good thing about Burn Supper is it's quite light. Do you know what I mean? It's well, the one that we do a kind of Burn Supper, and rather than doing a starter, we do cheese boards at the end. Just because I think people like to sort of maybe it's balancing it with the whiskey. We are serving Lockleigh whiskey this year, which is part of the distillery. It's actually the place where Robbie Burns was born, and so we've been very careful to try and find cheeses that balance that. And I think there's this thing at the end of a Burn Supper where once you've had we do haggis, then we'll do the cranachan, and actually cheese board I think is quite nice, because people might be sitting with that for a good hour and a half. So it's quite sort of French, that, isn't it, when you think about that kind of charcuterie idea, that it doesn't leave the table. And sometimes people might just be breaking bits of oat cake and dipping it into chutneys and stuff and nibbling away while the speeches and stuff are going on.
It's always good to graze.
Aye. Well, it's something about whiskey as well, because a lot of people drink whiskey on Burns night, or they'll have a dram when the haggis comes in, when they wouldn't ordinarily be whiskey drinkers, or that might not be their drink of choice. So there's something about setting the palate down once you've had that whiskey. I don't know, your palate sort of searches for something quite savoury to balance it, maybe. And it depends if you're bold enough to have the whiskey as a dram just straight, or whether you break it down with the water. I know there's whiskey Puritans here. My grandpa always said, break it with a touch of water. The water of life, he would say, Ishka. Well, we add water, and it just kind of splits the whiskey up for you. Well, I've offended half of Scotland with that statement.
No, not anymore. You can drink it. I mean, I put Coke in it sometimes, so it's fine.
I love a wee Coke.
So to go back to the underwater Burn Supper, can you tell us what that is and what it entails?
Yeah, so we're always trying to think about amazing ways that we can get people to think about the Burn Supper in itself. So we've become a specialist, I think, in forming Burn Suppers, We've definitely become a specialist in trying to break down the form, like saying to people, don't just follow the kind of Masonic legacy that we're left with, that you have to toast this here, you have to toast that there. So the underwater Burn Supper experience it's for you and a pal, or you and your partner, or you and your mum and your dad, whatever. It's for two people. You go to the local swimming pool. When you get there, they don you with a kilt. So all you need to do is go with your swimming trunks or your costume. You get a kilt when you get there. They wrap it around you, and the Burn Supper is basically happening in a stream to your ears. So basically, there's a radio frequency that we're broadcasting the supper from, and as you swim under the water, you basically get this Burn Supper experience. But within that, we've tried to, we were thinking, well, how do we make that quite different from, like a fast-paced bun supper? So it's actually, we've created a really holistic, quite a meditative experience. Now it's sold out already, and we're hoping we can increase capacity to let people experience it. But as you go, if you imagine the environment we're under is under the water, so there's times that you'll be able to swim under at the same time, and the feed's constant. And what we realised is that if people are like giving it laps, the last thing we need to do is keep them revved up. So it's quite meditative, quite kind of soothing. And by the end of it, we explore some of the ideas that are really about a bun supper, about feeling positive, about breathing, about kind of breath control, and there's some bits in it where we ask if you can kind of just try and get your breathing regulated first. And in curating that, we worked with artists that we've been working with previously, and I think what we wanted to do was put the best of Big Burn Supper into that experience, but it's all very abridged. It's not long pieces, and that's something that we are quite good at. We don't tend to go with the very long burns pieces. We tend to just give it nice wee short bursts, because actually sometimes you sort of lose the meaning. So once you've done all that and you've had the experience, it lasts 30 minutes because it's quite tiring to swim in. Then when you come out the pool, we dry you down, and then you get a little box. Inside the box is a haggis pie, which is the haggis, the neeps and the tatties. It's made by the little bakery locally. It's award-winning pies. You get a wee bottle of whiskey and a wee poem and a wee gift pack, and you're sort of left for the rest of the day, and you're sort of mesmerised by this experience. I've tried it already, and it's so soothing. It surprised me how soothing we've made it. It's not... You should finish it, be like, what just happened? To me.
And do you find that people are, obviously, because this is sold out, people are looking for a bit more of an unusual experience when it comes to Burns Night? Like you say, they're maybe not really looking for the black tie, proper sit-down formal meal anymore.
That's not just true to us, I think the whole of Scotland's music scene has just rocketed in the last maybe 10, 15 years, where, our trad music is much more contemporised. You've got incredible bands on the scene like Skerryvore and the Peacock Fairies. They sort of led that, but then like Talisk and all that. And we've always done that. At the centre of our Burns experience has been a show called La Haggis, and we basically brought 600 members of the audience and sat them in the round, and we put the Burns supper in the round for them, but we mixed it with loads of different experiences. We'd have aerial artists flying through the air. We just kept playing with the form really, until we started to look around and we started to clock that the audience were getting younger. The audience were getting a bit cooler. They were wearing a touch of tartan. They were wearing their own kind of gear, and that for us started to make us realise that over the last decade, actually, Dumfries and the visitors to our festival kind of have that expectation that we're going to do something a bit daft. Just silly things like from the word go, we had we basically imagined that Rab had fallen in love with a drag queen. Her name is Tati, and that she's basically she's given birth to the illegitimate child of